Well, by my clock, it's 1 minute after, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Um, and just introductions like we always do. I will start first thing with the tip for the session, as we normally do. And then we've got Dominic Ilnicki here from Metadata. He's going to give us a special glimpse into the new public API functionality that's been recently added to Dataedo. And then following that, it will be Piotr's turn for the advanced sneak peek into upcoming functionality. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So for the tip this morning, what I wanted to talk about is foreign key relationships and primary keys in Dataedo. As you know, this functionality exists in desktop, and we'll get there in a minute. But I want to start with the functionality that's in Portal now. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, I believe, when we were talking about navigation. So the place we're at, obviously, we're in Portal here. This is version 24.2. I happen to be on 24.2.3, but within that, I am looking at a table right here. We're looking at this business entity address table. And if I go to columns right here, we have on these columns, we have the ability to not only see what the keys are, and this obviously right here is a primary key. It tells us what is involved in that primary key, and so on. Down here we have a unique key. Same thing. It tells us what columns are involved there. The new functionality here is we can define these right here. So this other icon there, if I click on that, I have this menu where I can choose add a primary key, add a unique key, or add a foreign key relationship. As you know, those foreign key relationships that already exist are shown right over here. So I have here this foreign key relationship from this business entity ID in the address table over here to business entity table, business entity ID column there. So that already exists. If I wanted to create a new one, that choice right there brings up this pop-up window where we can define that. Of course, we can define cardinality, defaults to many to one, and the foreign key is the place we start, same as in the desktop app. So we're looking at this business entity address table, which is the one that has focus up here, and we choose what we are going to link it to. So we could go in here and choose a table and a column to link this foreign key relationship to. I'm not going to make one. We already have those. But if you needed to create them, you can do that right there in the Portal app. Likewise, if you need to define, but let's go down here. If I needed to define a primary key or a unique key, I have that capability right there. As with Portal, of course, or as with desktop, of course, if you need to make a composite key, you can. You just select more than one row there out of that table to define that composite key. You can put descriptions on these if you need to, whatever you need to do to document these. Now, of course, the ideal situation is that your primary keys and your relationships, your unique keys, all of that is already defined in your source databases. So that's the ideal situation. That's the happy path. And then when you import your metadata, that comes with it and it's all documented already. Often that's not the case, and you need to define these here in Dataedo, so you have that ability to show relationships. And of course, the place we see those relationships really visually, of course, you have the descriptions in the tabular format here, but the place where you really see it is when you get into your ERDs. So if I go, let's go and look like this. I have an ERD here. And of course, those relationships that show up on the ERD are the relationships we're talking about, those foreign key relationships. Obviously, these are important to developers and other people who need to understand joins and relationships between tables so that they can properly use the data source. Not to be confused with data lineage. I know this is obvious for probably, I hope all, but most of you. The relationships we're showing here are database relationships. They're joins, basically, or they document where to put joins in your SQL statements. They don't show data flow. So there is a conceptual difference there. So the relationships are not data flow that we see in Lineage. Now, just for completeness, we can see these same things in the desktop. I hope you can see this. It's very small on this computer. But here is that same relationship we were just looking at right here. We have the business entity address. Right there is the foreign key table with a many-to-one relationship to the business entity table. This shows what columns were involved in that. It's the exact same thing we were just looking at, just a different view of that. And of course, if you need to add a relationship, same thing. You can do that here. There it is. It's the exact same thing. The difference here is you do need to choose the foreign key column. Since we didn't start with a column, we started with a table, we would have to define which column is involved in that relationship on both sides, the foreign key side and the primary key side. And likewise, if we go over here, we can see the primary keys, the unique key. If we need to add another one, it's a right click, and right there we have that choice right there. You can add a relationships there. It's all the same functionality, your choice, whether you use the desktop or the portal to create that. Final thing there is the ERD that we were looking at, which is right there. Exact same ERD we were looking at in Portal. The difference with this is I can manage and edit or create ERDs in the desktop. I don't have that capability in Portal yet. So to create ERDs, do that in the desktop, but you can view them either place. Okay, any questions on any of that or anything else?
Actually, before this meeting, I was exploring about ERD, how we can set up one for our company. Based on that, could you please show how we can add our ERD via desktop?
Yeah, so if you want to create an ERD, you need to have a subject area to associate it with. And you can have one ERD per subject area. So I have right here an ERD about sales data. Here, if I go to my products subject area, I can create an ERD right here. And the easiest way to do this is that I have linked a whole bunch of tables about products to this subject area that I created. All of those are here available. They're also listed on the right side under suggested entities over here on the right. You can simply drag these in. So you just start and you just start dragging them in. So you can do a lot of them at once. You could multi-select these, drag them in at once, and it will create those relationships between the tables if they're already defined. If they're not, you can define them here. One trick here is that if you highlight a table that's on your canvas, it will put in suggested entities, those things that already have relationships defined. So here I'm looking at the product table, and it has relationships defined. Let me expand that slightly. So it has relationships to the product subcategory, the internet sales, the product inventory, the reseller sales. I can choose from them and drag those on and gradually increase that ERD based on existing relationships. Notice here I'm looking at product subcategory, and category is now suggested because there is existing relationship. Product category is highlighted. There is nothing in suggested entities, meaning there is not another relationship from here predefined. If I go back to product, I have these others, and I can simply build this out as I go. That's a reason these relationships are so important. It helps you understand the data, helps your users understand the data, how to create joins, how to write SQL, those things. It also helps you as an editor create the ERD because it gives you these hints. You notice each time I go, it gives me more hints. Of course, the key to that is that eventually all of those tables will be linked to your subject area, and you'll have that cohesive, complete view of that subject. So in this case, we're talking about products. And so we will know all of the assets that are associated. We'll have the ERD. Eventually, we will have a description. I don't have a description written right here, but you'll have that. You'll have ownership. You'll have, whether or not that process is active, the data in the database is active or deprecated, planned, whatever. All of that information, you'll have it all there in one place for your users. So the ERD is just one aspect of that. But working right here in the canvas, it helps you. It gives you hints of how to build that out. As I mentioned, you can just select these, a whole bunch of them at once. Let's go like that. And we can just drag them on at once, and it will add them. If there are relationships, it will create them. If there aren't, it won't. Obviously, this isn't because they're in a different database and in reporting. But you can very easily create that ERD very quickly. The key is it needs to be associated with a subject area there or with a data area. Those are the only places where you can put ERDs. So just remember that. If you're wondering where to put it, it has to be in a subject area or a data area. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Richard. Now it is clear to me. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I have a video tutorial about that on the Dataedo website. I am going to hand off then to Dominic. You should be able to share your screen there, Dominic, I hope.
Yeah, we'll try. Yeah, looks good.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so in our latest release, so Dataedo 24.2, we introduced a public API feature. As you know, we are trying to be the platform that unifies all of your metadata in one place. So we capture all metadata from different sources that you use into one single metadata repository, and we give you those Dataedo portal and Dataedo desktop to browse through those and enhance your documentation. But what we also want to do is to let you integrate Dataedo with other tools that you might want to do that. That can be some internal tools that you're building or integrations with tools like Slack or Teams. Pretty much whatever you could think of to integrate Dataedo with to get the data from Dataedo into some other system, either internal or external. You can now do it in at least in some portion. So we introduced, this is just a first step of rolling out more and more API endpoints for Dataedo. So on this documentation page, so it's dataedo.com/docs/public API. I will paste that into a chat. You can see all the endpoints that we currently support. I'm sure that lots of you are familiar with REST API, but these are just like different methods, like different URLs you can hit to get some specific data from Dataedo. So data about different tables, different reports, your glossary terms, or data domains or business domains. So here's a table with all those methods that we currently support. Before using that, you need to enable it. So you need to go to Dataedo portal. This can be like, you need to have Dataedo portal to actually use this public API. And when you're on a home page, you need to click on the setting here, and then go to system settings, and then API here. And it will be disabled by default. So what you want to do is just click on that to enable it. And here you will be able to see a barrier token that will let you authenticate with this API. So then whenever you do an API request to that API, you need to pass an authorization header with this token you generate. And when you have it set up, it's all you need to do in Dataedo to actually start using it. After that, you can go to this link here with Swagger documentation. So here are all the endpoints that we currently support, with some description, what you can get out of those, and also with parameters that they expect, and example response, like the schema of a response you will get from that endpoint. So as you can see, you can get information about areas, columns, data sets. So these are all your like views, tables, different types of tables, all of that. Data sources, so different databases, and domains and glossary entries. There are much more to that. I just encourage you to go to that documentation page, and if you have some need to integrate Dataedo with some external system, just check if it's this kind of endpoint that you need is available right now. As I said, we're trying to build it more and more. So if you have any feedback, what else we could add, what kind of like endpoint you would like to have here to retrieve or to modify some information within Dataedo, we're obviously open to some feedback here. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. Thank you. Do you have any questions regarding REST API?
Have you heard from anybody, or have you as a group tested this anywhere? Not for, I don't mean does it work? I mean, have you seen an example of how it works in operation?
Yeah, so we have seen clients that are just like interested in pulling this kind of information from Dataedo to mostly to put it into some internal systems that they use, and they want to just like have this specific information also within their like kind of like CRM or different types of systems. So I would probably see that as the most like biggest use case right now. But honestly, we just like mostly launch it to also gather some feedback around that functionality, because there's a multiple different like use cases that you can use this kind of REST API for. So we're just very curious how people will actually use it, and we're just trying to gather some feedback around it to develop it furthermore.
Okay, perfect. Alex asks, can you provide an example of how to make a call?
Yeah, so I don't think I can at this very moment, but you can just like, I will share my screen, and you can just like use the language of your choice to actually make this integration. Because when you have your portal deployed, you have this URL here. This is URL to your desktop application, and at the end of that, you need to add this /API public v1, and then depending what you need. So if you need like list, for example, all of your data sets or data sources, like all of your databases, you would do /data dash sources. And this is like REST API, so it's very like generic. You can use it with any language or technology you'd like to do it. So it's depending if you want to make this call from Python or Java or some other technology. But this is how you construct this URL query.
Okay, good to know. I'm confident I know the answer to this, but I want to throw it out there just so it's on record. And that is, you have in some of those cases, you have post operations there. So where we're updating something in Dataedo from external. Obviously, the key to that is the ID for that object in Dataedo. So obviously, people have to go in and get that ID to be able to do that. So that's one side of it. The other side is there any risk of conflict between Dataedo working with the repository and the AP working with the repository through these post actions?
Yeah, I don't think there should be any issues with that. Yeah, we also have this like tracking of changes, so you can also see like what was changed and when and by who. So in any case, but I don't think there should be any issues with update using both API and manually changing data.
And you're referring to the history of changes for
Yeah.
objects, right? All right. So for anybody who's not sure what we're talking about there, I'll share quickly again here. So for example, in the desktop, let's just grab something here. When I am looking at an object here, I can right click and say view history. There will be no history here because nothing has changed, but there comes up a list of historical changes to this field for this object. So in this case, it's the description of the DIM products table that exists there. For any of these, you can get that view history on those in the portal. Same thing. If I go back to this, same thing. If I go into a table, for example, let's just choose a table. We have that history right there under that clock icon. So that shows us that. Now, presumably, Dominic, in this list, if something is done through the API under product, it would say something like API or something there, correct?
Yeah, I honestly haven't tested that, so I'm not exactly sure what will be visible here, but so I can't tell for 100%. I would expect that, but it's true.
Yeah, I need to look at that myself too, because I haven't, but presumably there will be some indicator under product and user that's telling us how that happened to attribute it to a person or a action there. Well, we'll test that. We'll test that, and I'm confident there will be an indicator here. So anyway, yeah, you can get that history under that in portal under that clock icon. All right. I'll stop sharing again. All right, then. With that, I'm going to hand off to Piotr to give us a sneak peek into something exciting.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'd like to show you what changes we are doing for the data lineage diagrams. Let me share my screen. I think that's the one. Yeah, can you see? Yeah, I see that you can see my screen. Okay, so you all probably have seen our data lineage diagrams. Over here, you can see how data flows from table to data set to some other data sets to visualization and dashboard, right? You can see the details of, where is it? The details on the column level. That's one of the things we're proud of, that we built column level lineage automatically for a lot of the sources. And some of the changes we've done here. So one is that you can, there's another mode where you click this once again. We show you all the columns in this particular table data set, whatever you're looking at. That's useful because for one, you can see what columns are in this data set, and also you can see which are not used, which are not moved, imported, used, whatever the use case is. So that's quite useful. There are 3 stages, collapse, expand, show only these, and expand, show all of them. That's quite useful. Another one, I couldn't find an example here, but we added a differentiated line for manual lineage. So this lineage was built automatically because it's gray. And if that was done manually, then it's a bit bolder and black. So yeah, that was requested and we've done that. So these are some small changes. Another one is when you go to, let's jump into lineage for column. There's a button here, which makes you jump to the higher level diagram, and we've added another layer of diagrams. This is object level, which you know, and it exists for a while now, but we've added another one. We can jump to source level diagram, which is super useful because now what I see here are not particular data sets, but sources. So I can see that our redash reporting is using a couple of databases, and this database is loaded from some other sources and so on and so forth. You can expand these and just like with tables, right? And then you will see data sets, and you can dive into that. We'll add also some markers of how many objects there are, so you can see high-level overview. For databases that are large, we do not show that because that would be too large, right? There are 121 tables. We'll add some kind of pop-up window with statistics, like with a list of those objects, so you can jump into those specific objects from that view. So this is coming up.
For just a minute right there. Something that I noticed when I was playing around with this, even at the object level, is if we look at that CRM database right there with the 121 tables, something that I was confused about is what seems to be a recursive. There's 2 of those recursive lines there, those right there. I was confused by those. I've actually looked at those pretty much, and basically what we're seeing here is things that happen within that database. So here you're seeing something is coming from a table and being put into views. So these are relationships that and procedures basically that happen inside of that connector, inside of that database. So they look really confusing, but that's all it's telling you is something is happening inside of there rather than always linking out to another location.
Yeah, that's quite common case, right? Over here, basically views within that database are using tables in that database, which is very, very common case. So yeah, I mean, you can always ignore this line. And in this case, it's procedures using tables. Yeah, I'm using this for a couple of days and I found it very, very useful. I really like it. It's still under development. It's coming into the product in 24.3, which is around September, something like that. No fixed date, but autumn. Some other things we are also planning to add, I don't know when exactly, is to add more information on those diagrams. So I would personally love to see the person responsible, some kind of owner or other role, like as an icon. I would also like to see for data sets, maybe classification level, data type, and that I would like that to be adjustable. So I'd like to have switchers that enable and disable specific elements. And obviously, when we add data quality checking, which we're working on, having indicators of the quality of the last run, that would be a big one as well. So yeah, this is something we're working on. Any questions regarding the lineage diagrams or any suggestions?
So I just mentioned, I think everybody knows this. When we're looking at the object level, so down a level from here, when we're looking at the actual tables and whatnot, we do have the ability to show or hide the processors, the procedures. So that makes a difference, whether it makes a difference for people depending on their role. The business users, you know, probably don't care about processors and data sets and stuff like that. The procedures, they care about, you know, table to view, to report. So they have that ability to not show those for business user. Obviously, a technical user probably cares about those stored procedures and what's happening, and you know, the detailed view of what's happening there. So that ability to show or hide processors becomes important there. The other thing I would mention, the upper right corner of your diagram right there, Piotr, those last two icons, to show that in a bigger window, because you know that can be important when you have a big complex lineage, to be able to see more at a time.
Yeah, that's useful as well. Yeah. And I just show you that here's some data sets in SharePoint. Oh yeah, by the way, we are adding SharePoint connector for list SharePoint lists. Also in next version, it was requested, I believe, last in the last talks. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago. So we did the research and it's already here. What you can see, it's already imported. So if you're interested in giving it a test drive, we were happy to send you some kind of installer. So over here I have a 5-tran importer import, which is a processor, but I can use the simplified view and it's hidden. So what Richard was just explaining.
Piotr, a question. That other icon up there in the corner, is that a download? What do we get if we download? Does that come to a, okay, as PNG?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, you can save it as an image.
Yeah, that'll be really useful.
Yeah, so as you can see, we are doing a lot in this area all the time, and we're listening to your feedback because a lot of those changes was feedback we received. So we are listening to that, and yeah, feel free to share anything you have.
All right then. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for being available at the alternate time this week. Appreciate that.